right. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to the stream. It's good to see you guys today. It's been kind of a weird Sunday. I haven't been able to rock climb at all this week. My partner's been super sick, so I had all this time today that I normally don't have to do other things, housework, and get a little extra painting done this morning. So, like I said, it's really good to see you guys. I have a new painting tile here. Courtesy of Packed Team. You've probably seen him here in the chat before. He sent me these tile samples, and so this is actually kind of a cool background to have behind the painting instead of my really old paint speckled black tile. So I know that I was supposed to have a special co-host here today. However, it was kind of, I woke up this morning to see a Facebook post from him that showed a giant swollen lip and like blood running down his face. And he said that he was at a concert last night, which he had a lot of fun at, and in the parking lot after the concert, he was saying goodbye to his friends, and some guy just came out of nowhere and cold clocked him, knocked him down to the ground, and then ran off. He has no idea who the guy was or what he did, but needless to say, his face is kind of swollen, and he wasn't really feeling up to being on camera today. But he is excited to meet you guys, and he'll be on as a co-host another time, and you guys can ask him for the full story of what happened last night. But he's gone, not able to make it today, so you're just stuck with me. Sorry about that. We're going to be working on Allie today. I'll tell you what I did. I've been trying to paint her almost entirely on stream, and I still want to keep doing that. I did do one step off camera. I did it this morning, just because I think it's kind of a boring step, and you really can't see much going on as I'm doing it. So it would just basically you would just be watching me do 8 layers of something, and you're like, it looks exactly like it did before you started. So I decided not to do that on stream. What I did was I took this desert yellow color. It's called desert yellow, but it's really not very yellow. It's almost like a flesh tone color. And I thinned it down into a really, really thin glaze. And I just painted it over the camo. And I did 8 layers over the camo. You might be able to kind of see. You wouldn't have been able to see it going like with each step. But by the time I got 8 layers on, you should see that it's not as like bold as it was when we stopped last time. It's kind of the same trick I do with the tattoos, where I glaze over with the flesh tone several times to kind of help the tattoo sink in. So this is a trick you can do with textiles as well if you have a pattern on them. You know, if you look at old camo, somebody has camo pants or a camo tank top or something that's not brand new, they've washed it several times. And I'm assuming that, she's not wearing brand new camo, like fresh out of the manufacturer. She's probably been wearing this stuff a while. It kind of gives it a little bit of that worn texture, and some of the top layer of the ink gets rubbed off, especially anywhere where there's maybe ribbing or something, and it leaves it just a little bit dull, like a shirt that's been washed 20 or 30 times, that kind of look. And it just kind of helps it all tie together. So I did that off camera, and I'm going to do the shading today on camera, but I just wanted to get that step out of the way. But that's what I did to get that look. We can get a little bit closer look here. Thanks, Zach. How you doing today, man? By the way, I sent you a message. I don't know if you saw it, but no pressure to appear on the stream more often than you already are, but I went ahead and made you a moderator just in case something's going on in chat that I'm not noticing, and you can take care of it for me. I trust you. So anyway, so that's kind of how it looks. We're going to go in and do the shading today. Now, I talked before about the process of painting and being proud of what you achieve and being happy and enjoying it, but also being honest with yourself and pointing out things that you'd like to do better on future models. So I want to point out something that I've already noticed on her. there was something, I really liked the camo, but there was something that was bothering me a little bit. Yeah, it'll just be you and me, buddy. And what I realized was I kind of painted this camo at the wrong scale. Like the size of each of the little bits and bobs that are all over the camo probably should be larger given the size of this model. This is really a bit more of a scale that you would do on like a 28 or 32 millimeter model, I feel. I think like the spots are just a little too small. They should be a little larger scale for this. So if I do camo in the future, I'm going to pay better attention to that. I still think it looks really good and all the colors are right, but I think that the designs should have had a little bit larger shapes to them. I'm still overall, I'm happy, but I made a note of it to pay attention to in the future. Let's do a little update on where we're at with the Malifaux crew that I'm doing too before we get started today. So in the last couple days, I finished the Coryphée Duet. So the two models that sort of dance together, they can be on the same base or they separate and go on different bases to go wreak some havoc. I'm not exactly sure what all their rules are, but I finished them this week. So there's one. And here's the other one. Hey, the one Aeon, I think, is that how you pronounce that? The one Aeon? Is there something I can, well, I appreciate that. Is there a shorter name you go by usually on streams? Anyway, the one Aeon. So this is the other one. What I tried to do with these, I was doing mostly black leathers on all of the other models, and I was keeping their thanks. The green was, it was the scale black forest green. So I did my underlaying textures, built up with lighter colors and things. But this is the final color that I used, and I did multiple glazing layers over it to get that green. So this was the color I was using. So if you're looking for a good kind of jadish green color, this black forest green is really good. It's got a little more blue in it than you might be able to see on camera. It's an interesting color. I don't know how many, like it worked really well for her dress, but I'm not sure how many just like random uses that it has. I tend to prefer more like, I don't love the blue greens as much. But anyway, what I tried to go for with these was kind of creating like a duet idea. So they sort of contrast with each other, but they also complement each other as dance partners. So that was what I was going for and why I decided to put some white on this model, even though I didn't really have much white anywhere else on the crew. But I think they look good. Good pair. And these are the last models that I'm working on for this crew. These are ice dancers, so they almost like a Silver Surfer kind of idea, or Frozone from The Incredibles. So they create these ice flows that they then skate along or dance along. So I went with this blue skin tone with them, which I think turned out kind of cool. I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm working on the colors for the clothing. And I didn't want to go, I went light with the skin tone, but I want to keep the clothing kind of darker to match the rest of the crew. And what's interesting is, so for these two models, I put them off to last because I was kind of dreading. I didn't really want to paint them. But it turns out I'm having a lot of fun. I've been really enjoying the process of trying out some of this blue skin tone and working on getting this greenish blue, or bluish green dress on them, or clothing on them. It's not really a dress, but hey, Dread. Dreadroll. Good to see you guys. All right, so back to our regularly scheduled program. All right, focus is all good. Let's get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off making a shade tone for this. So the brown that's on there was a mix of Dubai brown, as well as a touch of brown leather, also from Scale Color. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up something similar. And we need this super thin. And sometimes I get asked about paint consistency. You know, how do you know your paint is the right consistency? And it's hard to answer that question. You just kind of develop a feeling for it over time. And mostly what I do is, knowing what purpose I'm about to use the paint for, I test it on paper towel, and I touch the paper towel and I see how it reacts. How quickly it spreads, how thin it looks like on the paper. And so that's kind of my guide for whether I'm getting the right consistency or not. And I'm looking for different things depending on what task I want the paint to serve. This should be good for now. Let's see. We'll start in an inconspicuous spot. It's like when they tell you, you get some new floor cleaner or something, and they tell you, try it in an inconspicuous spot in case it messes with your color. So as we always do when we're doing shading, you want to make sure that your brush strokes move into the shadows, especially when your paint is this thin. Your paintbrush is going to push along the pigments. So they're going to end up very little of them at the beginning of your brush, or say fewer of them at the beginning of your brush stroke, and they're going to tend to congregate near the end of your brush stroke. So you can get nice transitions from one color to the next or into your shadows by continuously brushing in the direction you want to go. Highlights go the opposite way. They go towards the raised areas. So these are all going to go towards our shadows. And I'm going to follow where the light lines that I've established already on her legs on this. Now, if you're doing this right, your model is going to look wet where you apply this, but you actually shouldn't really see the color. The idea is we're going to do this over multiple layers, and the color is going to slowly build. That way we're not just painting over what we've done already. We're actually establishing a nice soft transition into the shadows. If you don't quite like it, if you notice something building up, kind of weird in a certain area, just get your brush wet and just kind of rub it over that spot. It'll fix it for you. That reminds me, I was going to print something off before stream, so I had it as a reference if we get to it. Talk about that in a minute. So I've been thinking about what to do with her shirt that she's wearing. And I think what I want to do is I want to do it as a green, like an old vintage faded army shirt. So doing it kind of like an army green color, but work on it a little bit to make it look a little faded. And then do sort of a vintage, the U.S. Army kind of name across, like the World War II era look to the logo or the font. And then weather that some, so again, it looks like it's kind of a beat up old shirt that she's wearing. It seemed to be fitting given that she's wearing this camo stuff. Maybe she raided an old army supply store. Or maybe she's ex-military. I know this is the character. It's supposed to be the character from Resident Evil. I've never actually played the game. I'm not really sure what her backstory is. I guess technically she's really the movie actress. I've also never seen the movies, so again, I don't really know what her backstory is. By the way, if you hear something off camera, one of my cats is super wild right now. He's throwing toys all over the place. So that's what that noise is. Oh, he's also screeching. He's probably wondering where Cass is. The other day on Twitter, I was asking people what they might want to see in a giveaway. And Cass, who sometimes stops by the stream, she said she wanted my cat. That's the giveaway. So then I was joking that she's like his number one fan, and I sent her a headshot of the cat, like he sent her an autographed photo or something. It's funny. So anyway, I was going to look for an image of the old vintage U.S. Army text, so I could have it for reference. Probably, I may not get to that today anyway, but. So anybody out there in chat painting along with me today? What are you working on? That's cool. I really like painting Infinity models. The aesthetic of them is just really cool and different. You know, having been raised on a steady diet of Games Workshop over the decades, Infinity is such a breath of fresh air to paint compared to those guys. Is it like a tag or just a single infantry model, or what is the model? That's cool. The Auric Ta. I'll have to look that up. Not heard of that model before. I've just recently, this last year was my first time ever painting a bust. It was so much fun. I also, started painting more models like her, like these 75mm size models. And while, you could paint dreadnoughts and things like that in the smaller scales, there's just something about painting larger scale models I'm just really loving. It's just such a fun new challenge, and really enjoying it. You'll also notice that when I'm doing this glazing, every time I load my brush, I tap it on the paper towel over here to get less paint on it, because I don't want this to be a wash. I want to have this paint under my total control, just using it as to slowly tint the color underneath. A Nomad rocket launcher guy. I like the Nomad aesthetic. I painted some Nomad geckos a couple years ago. Had a lot of fun with them. And I bought the iguana to paint at some point, but I had never gotten around to it. I think that if I played, I don't really know how any of the factions work, but I usually don't worry about that when I start playing a game. I just pick whatever faction I like the look of or the fluff of. I think that if you force me to pick a faction just by looks alone, I think I would probably pick the Nomads. Cool, you're getting really close then, huh? When you're all done with it, you should, if you're on Twitter, you should tweet it. Tag me on it. I'd love to see it. When I'm done with this pass, I'll hold her up to the camera so you can see better the progress that we're making. And then I might actually end up darkening this color just a touch to start working further into the shadows. Fair enough. I mainly am only on social media for hobby stuff these days. I don't do too much else on there. If I didn't have my hobby page, I probably would be done with Facebook. I'm enjoying I'm enjoying Twitter much more lately. When I rebranded, and I'll talk about that in a second too. I rebranded a year ago and created a new Twitter account. My new Twitter account is only hobby stuff. Like, the only people I follow are people that just pretty much exclusively tweet about hobby stuff. So that's kind of like my sanctuary. I can go onto Twitter and just look at gorgeous pictures of painted models, or see what people are trying, or communicate with people that are enjoying everything. All right, so here's where we're at. So hopefully you can see that it's starting to darken up a little bit in some of the shadow areas and underneath her legs. Should just be pretty subtle. We don't want to completely eliminate the camo, but we're just working to start creating some natural shadows in there. That's fair. All right. Thanks, man. All right, I'm going to add a touch of, this one's brand new. I got to pop the seal. Some camo dark brown to this. I tried out what this color looked like the other day, just to see if maybe this was what I was going to want. It's very, very dark. And when you thin it out, it's almost like a purpley black color to it. Purpley black brown. So I have to be really careful. This is going to quickly overpower anything I add it to. So you can even kind of see right here where it's in the bubble. It's like a purpley brown black. So just add just a little bit. Your dark color can when you're mixing colors, you always want to, if you've got a lighter color and you're adding dark to it, always go slow. Because if you put too much dark in, and you want to go back to light, you've got to add a lot of light to get back to where you're at. The dark goes much further in the color mix towards changing things than the light colors do. And I've got those samples all on my paper towel over here so I can see where. I don't have any work in progress stills. I just did it on my last stream. So the session 4 for this model. So if you go back and check out that video, it's archived on my Twitch channel for now. I think it's only 30 or 60 days it stays saved, but I've been uploading all the videos to YouTube as well as a more permanent record. I can sort of roughly tell you the process I did though. I started off the same brown that I mixed up for doing this glaze, but I just didn't thin it out as much. I did that as a base coat. And then I mixed up a camo green color, and I just sort of, painted little squiggly, blotches all over the black, or all over the brown. Then I went in with the black, and I did smaller little splotches that kind of overlapped everything, and I finished off with just hitting little spots of the tan off-white color. So that was the order I did everything in. It's true, you do get better zoom on the stills, however, I'm not quite sure. Are you talking about, should I take them out of the saved video, or are you talking about like stop and take a picture when I'm, like, do I stop and take a picture? Because I wouldn't want to stop in the middle of doing my stream to take those pictures. I tend to do lots of work in progress stills when I'm working on projects not on camera. Although it kind of depends on my mood. Sometimes I'll just not feel like stopping. Other times I'm really take lots of detailed pictures. Yeah, so I usually only do that when I'm not streaming, because I don't want to stop the work for everybody who's watching me. Is that how you found me? From Belleville? I so want to call it Bell of Lost Souls, but Beast of War. I always think of, it's probably still around, but I used to go to Bell of Lost Souls all the time. But I haven't been there in years, but that name's stuck. Well, cool. I enjoy that website, that hobby forum, quite a bit, the Beasts of War. A lot of really cool people in there. Very excellent vibe. Everybody's in there to have fun and help one another. You don't get the sense that anybody's in there to cause trouble or unfortunately I have not been on very much lately, for two reasons. First of all, January was just a killer month for me for work. So I didn't get quite as much painting as I usually do. But then also just had no time to go and update stuff on the site when I did paint. So I'll probably end up doing a big dump of pictures sometime in the near future. All the things I've been saving up last month. But I also was in kind of a rush. I'm trying to finish that Malifaux crew. So I wasn't stopping and taking as many pictures or spending as much time on blogging about the process, because I need to get them off my painting table. I got another project that's coming up. It's pretty time sensitive. Once it hits my desk, I got to try to paint them as quick as I can. So I don't want to have this old project still sitting there when those models drop. I definitely lurk more than I post. I will agree with you on that. All right. I'm getting close here. and trying to decide if I want to go one step darker. Hey Zach, I know you have a reputation for getting things off your desk quick, no matter the size or how tedious the project is. Your turnaround times are amazing, right? And your response is, as long as they aren't five-headed dragons. Alright, so I'll show you where we're at here. So you can see that down, of course I'm getting natural shadows where I'm trying to paint shadows in too, but the brown glazing has started to create the shadows along the same line where the shadows for the thigh are coming down. And then as you get out to the non-shadowed areas, you see the pattern much more clearly. Got some shading along where the folds are. I think that I'm actually I think I'm actually pretty happy with where that is. I don't think I'm going to go any darker. I'm going to mix one a little bit darker shade. I'm just going to go where there's folds in the cloth, not actually into the shadows under the legs, but I'm just going to accentuate a few of the places where there's folds. Start with what's on my palette. Kind of want to go somewhat dark on this. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, I might go back and do some extra layers of that light color over the knee. It's a good suggestion. Yeah, I agree with you. Maybe I'll do a little bit of that while we're working on other stuff. I'll just have some of that mixture up. We'll do a few more coats over the knees. I like it when you guys chime in Now I know I'm the one painting, but I like this to be a process for all of us. So let me do a quick first ninth coat over the knees of the lighter part. Again, this will be slow to develop, so just keep pulling that pigment towards the highlighted part, and we'll let it dry, and we'll keep going back to that as each time it dries, and if I keep remembering to do it. What's nice when you're doing if you're doing painting with glazes like this, you kind of have your intermediate tones to start with, and you're doing highlights and glaze and shadows with glazing, is you want to have either like multiple models that you're working on at a time, or multiple like parts of the model that you're working on. It wasn't so bad with doing the pants just because there's two legs, so it's kind of that same principle. And I work on one leg, go to the other leg. By the time I'm done with this leg is mostly dry, and I kind of just switch back and forth between them. But, you know, like if I was trying to just work on a face, say, and I did one glazing layer and it's just sitting there wet, I don't want to be twiddling my thumbs for 5 minutes while that dries. So it's nice to have things you can go back and forth to, so you're not wasting your time just watching paint dry. So with this darker color, like I said, I'm just going into the folds, just putting some shadows underneath the folds. So those are going to be the darkest spots that you'll see when... Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate you stopping by today. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and hope to see you again, okay? But that's where you're going to have the darkest spots on the fabric, so we want to have darker shadows in those folded areas. So I realized when I was on Twitter the other day, it kind of popped up a little alert thing to me, or like a reminder. It was letting me know that I'd been on Twitter for 1 year. Of course, I've been on Twitter for longer than that, but as Gorilla with a Brush, I've only been on Twitter for a year. So that reminded me that last February was this month is my 1 year anniversary from rebranding as Gorilla with a Brush. And it's been a really cool year. Redid all of my social media, created my painting pages, created my new Twitter account. What's been really neat is, like this iteration, I started over with 0, so went back to 0 followers from the 500 or 600 or so I had on Twitter before. But this community that I have now kind of grew up more within the time period where I've been trying a lot of new things. I wasn't just painting the same army, the same type of models over and over again. I've been doing a lot of new types of stuff. Like I said, I painted a bust for the first time this last year. I've been painting larger scale models, been doing models from lots of different types of games, been doing charity donations, I've been posting stuff on Beasts of War. I just did a lot of stuff this year that was kind of new territory for me, hobby-wise, even though I've been doing this for a really long time. This has been my favorite year in the hobby. I feel like I've produced probably the best models I've ever painted over the course of the last year. I've just been really enjoying the process. Focused on learning. I'm not worrying about playing any games at the moment. Just painting and having fun. So Zach was telling me that, Blues Light, was telling me that I needed to have a beer on stream to celebrate. And I don't have any beer in the house, but I do have some tequila. So cheers to you guys for 1 year supporting me. And I appreciate you guys being here on stream today, and I hope that you guys, you all obviously follow me in one way or another, and I hope that you get something out of it. But I also want you to know that I get a lot out of having you guys follow me and like my posts and retweet or comment and follow things on Beasts of War. It does more than I can explain, more than I could describe, to keep me motivated, to keep me wanting to try new things. If you try a new model and you're excited about some paint thing you did and you post it someplace to share, and then nobody comments or likes or anything, it just it's a little deflating. I don't really have a strong social gaming hobby community here anymore where I live, so this online presence I have is kind of my social outlet for the game now. And so the fact that there's people out there who are interested in what I do, who follow me, comment, ask questions, it keeps me going, and it means a lot to me. So I appreciate that you guys are here and you guys are supporting me. Yeah, cheers back to you, Zach. If you've got a drink, lift it up, man. This particular beverage is my favorite. It's Herradura Añejo. Reminds me much more of a really, really good whiskey. It's delicious. All right, I'm just about done with these folds. Just made a couple passes. I know it takes a long time to do this glazing technique where you use really, really thin paint, but that's how you get really subtle color shifts. It's how you keep everything really nice and smooth. And especially when you're working over a surface that you've already painted and you have a lot of pattern and texture there that you spent a lot of time on, the worst thing you can do is have your paint too thick and just go over and you just ruin what you're working on. So better to do 3 or 4 thin layers than 1 or 2 layers and mess it all up. So Well, thanks, Zach. All right. Let me remember to do another pass on the knees. Something else I could mention too that I started to do this last year when I rebranded. I used to, it was kind of weird. I used to have no problem giving away models that I was painting for commission. If I knew ahead of time that I wasn't going to keep the model, it didn't matter how awesome it was, just, get rid of it, it's fine. But if I painted the model for myself, I would have a hard time getting rid of it. I never want to sell it. I want to keep it in my cabinet. But over time, nobody really comes to my house to look at my models. But I got to a point one day I didn't really know why I was keeping so many models in my cabinet. And meanwhile, all my unpainted models are collecting and spending money on that. So in this last year, I've gotten much more just not precious with my paint jobs. I paint something, I'm happy with it. I take the pictures. I've got the pictures forever, but I don't mind selling the models off or whatever. So I pretty much sell everything that I paint now, or have commission jobs that I do sometimes. Like those Malifaux models, somebody wanted me to paint those, but I don't just take any commissions anymore. I'm really picky. So I already owned half of those models because I just wanted to paint them myself. So when the guy wanted that as a commission job, I was happy to take it. But what I do now, again, starting last year, is now I do, I donate 25% of what I get from selling models or from doing commissions to charity. I think it's a fun way to use my talents to give back. And so last year, I donated some models to the Nova Open Charitable Foundation, and they auctioned things off for Doctors Without Borders and cancer research and things like that. And then I was going to give the cash part of my donation to some animal, charity, animal rescue, or shelters and stuff like that. But Nova Open was actually in need of some sponsors for their lounge that they do. So they pre-buy a bunch of alcohol, and then they have a bar that, just a hotel room, I think, that you can go into. Some kind of suite. And they sell alcohol there, and then all the proceeds go to the charity. But they needed people to pay to stock the bar for the initial outlay. So I decided to go ahead and put the cash towards that for last year to help them out. This year, I don't know that I'll do that. I'm donating models, but I think that I've decided the cash part that I get this year from my various projects, I'm going to split between animal charities. So I was thinking there's a gorilla conservation charity that's super duper highly rated, and considering my avatar, I thought that might be a good cause to do some contributions to. And then there's a local charity here in Arizona called the Arizona Pet Project. And what they do is they focus on families that are really in need, and if their pets get really sick, and they would essentially have to just abandon the pets or put them down, but the condition would otherwise be treatable. This organization steps in to give those animals the care they need so that basically the family pet for these families doesn't have to get killed or get abandoned in a shelter. So I think it's a really good cause. I probably will donate to that. And then maybe a local no-kill shelter too. Well, I want to get out to the Nova Charity or the Nova Open one of these days. It always hits at a really weird time of the year for me, though. Because I work in education, I work at a university. And the weekend that Nova Open is, almost without fail, I shouldn't say almost, like without fail, it's a weekend that either I have something to do on my campus because the semester is getting geared up to start, or I'm out at other universities doing training for TAs or something at their universities. So I have not been able to actually make it happen. Last year was kind of close. I was in New Jersey on the Monday and Tuesday of that week, and then the Nova Open started on Thursday or Friday or something. If it had been the other way around, if it had been like 1 week off, I would have been able to just go to the East Coast early or stayed there a little late, but I just couldn't make it, couldn't swing it last year. Seems like it's a really cool convention. Well, somebody was telling me that they, who go to a lot of conventions, said it's one of the more expensive ones to attend. Just like everything's a little more expensive, from tickets to room to everything there. But it's in Washington, D.C., I think, so I guess that doesn't really surprise me if that's the case. All right, probably need a little bit more on that, but I'm going to also start working on her t-shirt. I want to do a little extra shading there. So Nekar, this was what I mostly based her t-shirt in. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to add a little color to it to darken it. So the undertones right now are warm gray. I don't really want to mess with that too much. I want to keep it in that warm gray family. I think it will get too dark if I paint her shirt green. I don't think so. And it's not going to be super dark green. I mean, it's going to be, it'll probably end like a color like this. So it's not going to be super dark. But if you think about the color zones, it's essentially probably even going to be lighter than what this brown color is right now. But the way the color balance that I'm envisioning it's going to be is essentially she's almost got like a T shape for the light colors. So going down from her head down to her upper thighs and across her chest. So it forms like a T for the lighter colors, and then everything else is accented in dark. And so it draws your attention to the middle part of the body, which is really where you want a viewer's attention to essentially go to the center mass and face of your model. So you want to pull attention there. If I did really super light extremities or something, that's really not like visually what's going to pull people into looking at the model. So yeah, so my goal is to get the viewer to be essentially paying attention to where her t-shirt and her face and arms are. That's kind of the focal points. So to make one more point about the donating the money to charity and things like that, this model that I'm painting right now will be available for sale when I'm all done with her. And again, 25% of the money that I get from that will go to charity. So if anybody who's watching the stream or who watches this later, are you interested, just send me a email or a message on Twitter or Facebook, or however you, I guess you can whisper at me on Twitch. I contemplated making the t-shirt a really light pink color, because I think a light pink color looks really good with army green actually. But in the end I decided to keep it more classic with the ribbed cotton tee. Alright, so let's see how this looks. Might need to go just a shade darker. I just started going crazy there for a second and putting the shade tone everywhere. Just wanted up in the shadow areas. So I had to water it down and push it around. When I'm doing this, I'm not being too concerned about getting any paint on the shirt, because I haven't painted that part yet, so it can be as messy as I like. I'm also going to go back and touch up the highlights on this t-shirt when I'm done shading it. So I didn't think I saw, Zach. Are you painting while we're streaming today? Are you working on that dragon, trying to get him off your desk, or painting some 40K? That's cool. The interesting. So I do want to I do want to get back to painting with metallic some in the future. I do want to practice with some true metallic metal. And I've heard overall really great things about the scale paints for the metals. Except some people have just complained about really bad batches, which happens, but as I've recently learned, I don't know that they're always great about quality control with how old some of their paints are on the shelf, or how they store them or something, because I just basically got the whole set of their Warfront paints the other day, and over a third of them were either completely dried out or really, really, really thick to where I had to add thinner and water to them to make them even shake. So as much as I love their paints, that was a little frustrating. So I've been trying to contact their customer service. I'm not having too much luck. Yeah, that's basically what I've heard. And what I tried years ago, I tried the Vallejo metals that require mineral spirits to clean, so the alcohol-based metallics. Those things were crazy. Those were like the shiniest metals I've ever seen. Like the silver one was like painting almost like literal chrome on your models. And the gold was so bright and shiny. I'm actually going to add a dab of this color we were using on our pants. Decided I'm just going to add a dab of that to start darkening this further. For two reasons. First, it's close at hand. And second, when you cross mix like this, you actually create more color harmony in your models. It's one of the tricks on those troll blood models that I had, that old troll army. But there was a couple colors that were mixed into almost everything, creating lots of uniformity that people couldn't quite explain why everything just sort of meshed so well. That's one of the tricks. So anything that had brown or yellow always had P3 Battlefield Brown in it, and had some amount of Commando Khaki and Desert Yellow added in the highlights or in the layering stages. The green had the same thing too. So all the greens and browns and yellows all had the same essential colors added to the darkest colors in the layers. Kind of tied everything together. Your not Super Bowl party. Cool. Thanks for stopping by, Zach. I really appreciate it. Have a good day. Tell your wife I said hi. You know, Andrea is one of the few companies I've never tried their paints. I think think there's really only 3 companies probably that I've never tried paints from. Andrea, Reaper, and War Colors. I'd like to try all of them, but gotta have some restraint on the amount of paints I own and purchase. Sorry, that was weird. I don't know if the stream cut out for a second there or not. That's kind of what I've heard, and I've heard that Reaper are kind of similar to P3 paints. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I heard. The War Colors are the ones that really intrigue me because they're like a gel-based paint. I just don't even know what that means. I'd like to mess around with them and see. I've heard they're very different. There's a lot of painters I respect who say the War Colors white is the best white paint they've ever used. Alright, so we are getting some extra wear there on her knees if you kind of compare it to the other camo that's around there. I think that looks good. That's a good suggestion. There are more flow improver and Reaper. That makes sense. The Reapers are a little more thinned down. The P3, what I like about them, what I've always kind of liked about them, is they tend to start thicker. It's kind of like scale color, their basic line. They tend to start thicker, which is nice because that gives you full control over the consistency of the paint. A lot of the stuff that I do requires a lot of different consistencies in my paint depending on what I'm trying to achieve. So the fact that they start off thicker and that they thin down really, really well, the P3s thin down like a dream, so do the scale colors. That I can basically do anything I want from really thick texturing to the thinnest glazes. And so those are probably my 2 favorite paint lines that I've tried. All right, I'm gonna go back up and touch up this shirt. I believe, and I don't know for sure, I don't recall. It's been a couple sessions since I did her shirt. I think that I just used Nakar and maybe added some white to it to to lighten it. So. Yeah, that makes sense. I got no problems with Vallejo, and I probably would like them more if I used them now. But I remember back when I was first painting, and I had a whole bunch of Games Workshop paints, and then I had a whole bunch of Vallejo paints. And for the style I was painting at the time, I really needed my paints to be fairly translucent, that you could see through them easier. And the Games Workshop paints were like that. The Vallejo paints kind of were super famous at the time for when they were released or started to become more popular. You know, you could just base coat right over black and get like one coat coverage with the Vallejo. So there was a lot of gamers who just were falling all over themselves to switch over to Vallejo. And but for the painting I was doing at the time, I actually didn't want that to be a feature of my paints. So when I would try to use Vallejo for the same things I was doing, it would leave very, very clear demarcations between my colors. And so if I was trying to do like a color fade on a cloak or on a sword or something, you could pretty much see every layer of color as like little concentric lines. I didn't really like that. But at the time, I only really knew how to paint one way. I didn't have my toolbox built all up. So I probably would like them a lot better now, and I do own some. I just have never gone back to using them as a main paint since that experience. And more recently, Scale 75 have been really, really good to me. They've pushed me to learn a lot of new things, and for the way I've been painting lately, they do exactly what I want them to do. So there hasn't been really a need to explore Vallejo too much. Yeah, they can be tricky, the tide marks that you get from layering. So one of the tricks that can help with that is some of the overglazing you see me do. So after I build up texture, making the thin glazes and just applying them over the entire area will help to marry your levels together, and it'll start to make those things disappear. These days I mostly order my paints online. The few local game stores we have somewhat close to me don't have a huge selection. For the most part they carry Citadel, and that's about it. There's one store in the Valley, Phoenix area, that
has an amazing selection of paints from tons of different manufacturers, and they're a great store. The owner's awesome, but it's like an hour and 15 minutes away from me, all the way on the other side of the Phoenix metro region. So basically I have to drive through city traffic, probably 70 miles one way to get to their store. So I do not get out there very often. If they were closer, I would love to throw my money at them every day, but I just can't justify that drive. I never really thought about it. I guess I could ask him if he would be willing to mail stuff to me. Just thinking out loud. My brother goes to that store a lot. I did talk to the owner over Christmas when I was there. I might go do some painting clinics at the store. That'd be fun. Pretty quiet around here today. I'm guessing lots of people. I understand that. I've got I basically have 3 of these full of paints, and so it's kind of hard for me to justify branching out and buying anymore. I got everything I need color-wise, except metallics, but I don't really paint with metallics. But one of these days I'll need to get some metallics and get back to practicing with that. The one thing you could do is you could always start small, because they sell them in sets if you want. You could get their paint flesh set, or just get one set to try. Wouldn't be too expensive. Just sets are like 8 paints. I'm guessing there's a lot of people watching the Super Bowl today, going to Super Bowl parties, and they don't want to sit around watching me paint. They got more fun things to do. That's awesome. That's the best way to do it. Just steal your friend's paints. I know when I've had some people who, really close friends who were just getting into the hobby, I have let some people use my paints for a session or two before they start to get their own, or if we're painting together and they only have a very limited color palette and they really need something. I think I'm going to leave the shirt alone for now. That's good. Yeah, get a nice mix between the two of you. Alright, so here we're at. Here's where we're at. I can't talk. So I'm pretty happy with how she's coming along. I'm gonna take some brown. I'm gonna clean up the edges along the white t-shirt, and maybe start on her shorts because those shouldn't take too long, relatively speaking, to do. It'll probably just kind of come along organically. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up somewhere close to this color. Kind of a lighter olive green. I said like a faded old U.S. Army t-shirt color. But probably like this. But what I'll do with it is similar to how I've been doing the other things. I will base coat it. I'll start to add a little bit of the texturing to it and some layering, a little bit of highlighting. Then I'll start glazing over, and I'll just see how the color is developing, and I'm just going to keep over glazing until it gets to the color and tone that I'm looking for. And the more I do that, the darker it gets. So I'll just stop when it gets to the level that I like. But I haven't totally picked the color I'm doing for that yet, so we'll see. But I'm not planning on going super dark. The vest is going to be, it's kind of a vest, but really it's not really vest. Like it kind of looks like it's like a button-up shirt material.
It's not a very heavy duty fabric. Like it's got little buttons. So it's just kind of like a pretty lightweight cotton overshirt. Not really like a jacket or leather vest or anything like that. I don't think I adjusted the focus back. Should be better. Found some spots that never got any paint on them. Not even sure there's primer down in there, like down in her holsters. All right, blue denim. I want some really desaturated blues. So I think this is going to be a good color to work with. It looks a little more desaturated in person. Yeah, I'll go with this. To start. I was looking at this, but I think that's a little too blue.
Now this is liable to look pretty light right now compared to everything else, but that's okay. This is just to get us started. So my plan is, so once I get this down, I'm then going to go in and put the ribbing into the denim. And it's going to get pretty light when I do that. And then we'll go back in and retone everything, get it looking right. Do some shadowing and then do some final highlighting to do some frayed, worn patches on the shorts. For a second there, that looked like it was her shirt coming down. Wow, thanks Baphomet. That's awesome. Hi guys, welcome to the stream. We're working on Allie from Black Veil Models. She's modeled after the Mila's character on Resident Evil. So we finished up the camo pants today, camo leggings. We finished up her t-shirt. Now we're working on her jean shorts. Well, cool. I hope it's looking good for you. I say go for it. Definitely do some shadows for the shaved side of his head. I always say that though. Go for it. It's only paint. You can always fix it later. Plus, trying things is how you learn. Somebody had a good suggestion on Twitter this week when I was talking to them. They said that when I get a chance, some projects clear up that I have to be working on, that people can't really get the models too easily, that I should start advertising what I'm going to be working on next on my stream, and then people could buy the model and then paint along with me if they want. Try to use the techniques that I'm using, color combinations, things like that. I think that's a really cool idea. I think I'll probably start doing that later this year. Next time I'm painting a model, it's just for fun on the stream. Are you asking if you should be blue or gray? So one of the things that I've done when I've done 5 o'clock shadows or things like that is take whatever your flesh tone is, add just a touch of the P3 coal black if you have that, and I literally mean just a touch. You don't want too much on there. I have it around here somewhere, but I reorganized my paint station recently, so. I don't see it, but yeah. So the coal black, it's nice. It's gonna have gray and blue in there. You can even add just the slightest little tint of a dark red magenta, but you don't have to go to do that. Just the touch of P3 coal black, and like I said, just a very, very small amount, and then you want to have your paint pretty thin and just glaze it on in a couple coats. So you don't try to do it in one pass, because it'll probably not look that realistic. But yeah, so thin paint, just a touch of the P3 coal black to your skin flesh tone, usually looks really good. Sometimes I've had some good success adding just a little bit of a dark reddish magenta color to that same mixture. But you don't have to do that. All right, so just getting the second coat on the base of her shorts here. And then we're going to put in ribbing so it looks like denim. So to do the ribbing, I'm going to lighten this color, and because I have it handy, I'm just going to use this same mix we were using on the t-shirt. It's pretty close to white. I want to get significantly lighter than the shorts that are already there. I'm going to be glazing over these shorts quite a few times to get the right tones and shades. So I want the ribbing to stand up to that overglazing, so it won't totally disappear on us. Also, when you're doing that, the shadow for the shaved areas of his head, kind of like I was saying before, when you're doing the glazing stuff, tap your brush on a paper towel. You don't want too much paint on your brush. It'll just go like all over your model when it's that thin. If you have your brush overloaded, so you just tap it on the paper towel to get some of that extra paint off. And one of the things I like about doing this ribbing to do the denim is it kind of matches the t-shirt. Keeps that flow going. Yeah, no worries. So it's looking good. That P3 coal black is a really cool color. It's very different, very unique. It's kind of one of their, if you talk to a lot of painters, that's a color that they almost all have from P3 because you just can't quite find it in any other paint line. P3's turquoise ink is also a really nice product that they have. This is where it gets tricky. Doing freehand detail work underneath other parts. I know you probably can't see this. Sorry, I had to turn it away from the camera. Nice. It's key, man. Just, you start with something that kind of works and then you just tweak it to make it your own. I'm glad. I'm really happy to hear that. Now, write that down so that you don't forget for future minis. I have a journal here next to my painting desk that when I find a really cool color or something that I've been trying to create, I never quite got the color right, but it just works one time, I try to write down what I did. I would like to say that I keep a journal for all the colors I use for every model, and I fully had that intention to start doing that this last year. But like most resolutions or intentions, I just got lazy after a while. So now I only write a few things in there, but now normally, if I was doing something like this where technically speaking what I'm painting right now or no, never mind. I'm not even gonna, just ignore me. Cool. It was worth sitting and spending an afternoon with me. Then I'm happy for you. Glad I could help a little bit.
But hidden in that, what you just did is actually a broader tip that you can apply to a lot of different things. Generally speaking, if you're painting something like I'm painting these lines on top of the shorts, that if you're painting something on top of something else that you kind of want to be part of that same thing, so like the shaved head, seeing the stubble there, and you want it to be blended in with the skin while still giving you that effect, you always want to mix some of that base color into whatever you're working off. If you just totally start with grab a new pot, some totally other color, things don't always come out looking so good. So always maintain at least some of that base color in whatever you're working on top of it. Just happen to see the time a little over when I normally stop. I'm going to go ahead and finish this texture on her shorts and then probably call it a day. So I don't know if there's anybody else out there in chat or if it's just you and me. But if there's any last questions or anything like that, just let me know. Yeah, definitely. It's midnight over there, huh? It's just late afternoon here. So, yeah, have a great night, the one Aeon, and hope to see you again on stream. And if there's anybody else out there or watching later, thanks for stopping by. And cool, I'll keep an eye out for you there. Anyway, have a great day, guys. Take care. Thanks for watching.